Fanatics isn't just our name, it's who we are. Loyal, passionate fans dedicated to our favorite teams and to the sports we love. That's why we're honored to be able to offer fans the world's largest collection of official sports apparel and sports jerseys from all leagues, teams, and players you love. We feature a wide selection of gear from every league, including the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, and NCAA merchandise, which allows us to serve fans of football, baseball, hockey, basketball, lacrosse, soccer, golf, and, well, everything else that gets your heart pumping. Go to fanatics.com by using the QR code on your screen right now to celebrate your teams. That's fanatics.com, a proud sponsor of the Inside Edge Network, Cleveland's digital leader. Find us on InsideEdgeNetwork.com for the latest information on your favorite shows, personalities, and network partners. Plus, guess what? We have a merch shop. That's right, we have network polos, t-shirts, champion jackets, hats, and bottles. Rep the network. Every purchase supports independent sports and entertainment media. Use the QR code on your screen right now to check out InsideEdgeNetwork.com. That's InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Discover our collection of handcrafted candles. That's right, every product is thoughtfully created in small batches free from harmful toxins for mindful everyday indulgence. Our candles are hand-poured in coconut soy wax with natural wood wicks, offering a long-lasting burn and rich fragrances. Create a cozy, safe ambiance for your home with candles from Alley Rose Fragrances. First-time customers use the promo code InsideEdge20 to receive 20% off your order. AlleyRoseFragrances.com, proud sponsor of the Inside Edge Podcast Network.
And good morning, everybody. Oh my goodness. Everybody got the coffee? I got mine. Let's rock. This is the Inside Edge Network Morning Show with Omar Claussell Jr. And I am filling in today. I am your host, Eli Moon. And we are here on the Inside Edge Network. Happy to be here. Good morning, everybody. Happy morning. Happy Friday. It is a great day in Cleveland, Ohio. So great. My camera is ready to jump out of its seat. We are rocking and rolling, however, here on this Friday. Got a lot of stuff to get into today. NBA Finals Game 2, Spurs and Knicks in San Antonio tonight. Later on this evening, Knicks up 1-0 in that series. The Spurs looking to rebound, and Victor Wembanyama looking to have a better performance than he did in Game 1. The Knicks looking to steal both games in San Antonio and be in great position heading into Madison Square Garden later on next week, that being, right? So a lot of stuff to talk about there. We also have a question about the NBA and expansion. We talked a little bit yesterday on Inside Edge Primetime about expansion and if it's a good idea. Would Vegas and Seattle make the most sense for the two teams? Chad and I talked about that. I have a little bit more thoughts on that and kind of how another league is handling that. And then, of course, later on, we'll get into Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge out for the foreseeable future with the New York Yankees. What does that mean for the Yankees? What does that mean for the AL East? And really for Cleveland, what's that mean for the Cleveland Guardians as they continue to lead the AL Central? A lot to get into. Before we get into everything, let's go ahead and just remind you, thanks for being here. First off, like, follow, subscribe at Inside Edge Net on all the socials, YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Of course, Twitch as well. Hit that notification bell and know when we're going live so you can stay locked in with everything we got going on from weekly and daily shows. Omar's with you every morning, 9 to 11 a.m. Then we have Unfiltered with Kyle Cornell that is with you 5 to 6 p.m. every weekday. Of course, you have Inside Edge Primetime, which had Brian and myself, 10 to 11 p.m. every weeknight, and Midnight Run, midnight to 1 a.m. with AA Anthony Alford, our program director, and our bro, rocking with you on Hinge Behavior every weeknight. A lot of great stuff, and of course, weekly shows as well. Real Talk with Pop Moon Saturdays at 5, Jersey Chasers Wednesdays at 7:30. A lot of great stuff. Make sure you stay locked in with Inside Edge Network. And go ahead and hit that Inside Edge Net. Check out the website as well, InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Read about your favorite personalities like me and everybody else, of course, here on the Inside Edge Network. Go over to the partners page. Couldn't do it without them. W Energy, Monster Moments, SportsMemorabilia.com, Fanatics.com, and AlleyRoseFragrances.com. Could not do it without them and could do it without you. So we appreciate you. Go to the shop page and grab a windbreaker, a hat, a mug, a polo, a shirt, all the great stuff. Rep Cleveland's digital leader and your source for sports, entertainment, mental health conversations, news, and everything in between. All right, so it's a little weird sometimes. I'm filling in again for Omar, sending him well wishes. He should be back with you next week, but it's a little weird being on in the morning. Usually I'm scrambling after, eating dinner and calling Chad up, and I'm like, hey, Chad, we got a show here in about 30 minutes, and we get rocking and rolling, of course. Bring you that in the evenings. In the morning, I get to greet you and say, happy Friday. It's very exciting. A lot of great stuff. And I got a question. You chime in the comments if you are here with me. Of course, thank you for tuning in. How do you drink your coffee? I'll get right after it. I know some people drink their coffee black. I get it. Just the bitter taste. Hey, nothing like a strong cup of Joe. And some people like a little bit of cream. Papa Moon, he only does a little bit of cream and then straight coffee. Me, look, man, I gotta have the cream. I gotta have like a good amount. I gotta have some sugar in there, and we gotta mix it together, and we gotta get that cup of Joe rolling. Usually, I have at least one, if not two, and I'm not talking like small cups. So everybody's gonna think I'm crazy here for a minute. Here's my cup. I have a cup like this big, ladies and gentlemen. Go up to maybe here, and that is my cup of coffee. So if you're wondering why I'm always so ramped up, probably a lot of Dr. Pepper and coffee. And just pure positivity for what we got going on. So hope you are doing well. Hope you have your coffee ready, however you like it. Hopefully you're eating some breakfast. Double A Anthony Alford talked on Midnight Run yesterday about breakfast food at great length. We talked about breakfast food, and hey, it is the good news is, and I hope Double A is hearing me out there. It is 9:07 a.m. I hope he got his Taco Bell breakfast. I hope he checked out the one on Turney there, and I hope all of you are getting your breakfast wherever it may be, your fast food location or whatever. If you cook at home, sometimes I get the luxury of Papa Moon's up and he's cooking some breakfast and we got, eggs and bacon and all that good stuff. Sometimes we get a little crazy and, we make pancakes, but he is currently still down for the count. So that means I'm on my own, but I'll get a cup of coffee, rocking the second cup here after the show. All right, let's get into it here. NBA Finals, Game 2 tonight. New York Knicks, San Antonio Spurs. A lot to see, a lot to do if you're the San Antonio Spurs. And what I mean by see is, how does Victor Wembanyama bounce back in Game 2? He was 6 of 21 from the floor in Game 1 in San Antonio. And obviously, he wasn't the only one that had some struggles. De'Aaron Fox also played pretty poorly, especially in this fourth quarter. He struggled mightily. And when you look at it, right, Dylan Harper, I think he's going to play a lot more of a factor than a lot of people want to realize in this series. Dylan Harper is going to be that guy that possibly is the X factor for the San Antonio Spurs. I talked before the series. The Spurs, I still believe, have the deeper rotation. Now, I know the Knicks have got some good play out of Landry Shamet. They've got some great play out of other role players, from the starting lineup and OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges all the way to Josh Hart and some other guys that have stepped up. Mitchell Robinson was a big question mark too. He broke his fifth metacarpal on his hand, right? So he was questionable most of the time up to Game 1, but he played in Game 1. He helped provide a little bit of a boost for the New York Knicks, but Jalen Brunson, the big star there, 30 points in the comeback victory, was hurt a few times, and you didn't know if he was going to finish the game, but he did come back. He gave 30 points. He was clutch in the fourth quarter, something we've got to know out of Jalen Brunson, something Cavs fans are very familiar with, right? We thought we had Game 1 in the clear, Madison Square Garden. We're sounding the trumpets. We're getting ready for postgame, and we watched a 22-point lead just erased from the New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden. So Knicks do it again. They were down by quite a bit, here in that game against San Antonio at a point, and to come back to get the victory, they are now up 1-0. Karl-Anthony Towns also provided 18 points, 12 rebounds. He's going to be something to keep an eye on too. I talked about last night on primetime. Karl-Anthony Towns is not Chet Holmgren. And what I mean by that is Chet Holmgren, when the opportunity was there, he had to face some adversity, playing the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, a guy who I believe should have been the MVP of the league this year, and Victor Wembanyama. Yeah, Chet Holmgren shrunk all the way to 4 points in Game 7, and the Thunder losing Game 7 on their home floor. So, with that being said, I don't think Chet Holmgren is Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't think Karl-Anthony Towns is Chet Holmgren. Clearly, right? They're two different guys, two different names, two different games. And I think Karl-Anthony Towns is so important in this series for the New York Knicks because you have Jalen Brunson. You know what he's going to give you. You have some of these other guys, you know what they're going to provide for you. OG Anunoby, the great defense, second team all defense this year in the NBA. You have Mikal Bridges, who has turned it up the second half of the season and providing quality minutes as a two-way guy as well. And Josh Hart, look, he had 3 points and shot 1 of 5 from the floor in Game 1, but he impacted the game in so many different ways that you're not going to be able to stop him, right? You're not going to be able to stop him from impacting the game. He had 15 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals. He even had a block. So Josh Hart, one of those unsung heroes for the New York Knicks. But it's going to come down to Karl-Anthony Towns, and here's why for the New York Knicks. Again, you know what you're going to get out of Brunson. You know the role players are going to step up for the most part and provide you some options in terms of Anunoby, Bridges, and Hart. Karl-Anthony Towns is going to match up quite a bit against Victor Wembanyama, and is going to be into a position where if you're Karl-Anthony Towns, you're going to have to stretch the floor. You're going to have to pull Wembanyama from the paint so he's not so much of a force, a presence, blocking all your guard shots. He's going to have to bring him out to that three-point line and make him respect that three-point game. Karl-Anthony Towns, one of the better stretch bigs in the league when it comes to being versatile, being able to shoot that three ball, and also be able to make some plays in the post. And he's going to have to bring Wembanyama out to that three-point line. He's going to have to make him respect his game, and he did in game 1, 18 points, 12 rebounds. But that's going to have to continue. He's going to have to play like that the entire series for the New York Knicks to be able to win this series. They can't count on as much as they want to. They can't count on other guys to lead the charge. Of course, fourth quarter, Brunson's going to have the ball in his hands, but those first 3 quarters are going to be very important. Karl-Anthony Towns is making the Spurs respect that, hey, I can hurt you too. I can put you in a spot where I could end the game. So we'll see how that goes. For the San Antonio Spurs, however, Victor Wembanyama, probably one of his worst playoff performances in his young career, right? But he went 6 of 21 from the floor and 6 turnovers. He had a fan not mob him, but got up to him and took a selfie. If you missed it yesterday, all the news, there it is, boom. Victor Wembanyama had a selfie. That was some of the biggest news of the day, and who knows if it rattled them. All jokes aside, he's got to play better than he did in game 1. He's aware of that. Victor Wembanyama talked after the game, hey, I played bad. There's nothing really else to expand upon except for I played bad. It won't happen again. We're going to get it going. So you look at Wembanyama, I don't think he's going to have as poor of a shooting night as he did in game 1. I don't think he'll turn the ball over. He's not very careless with the basketball. We get on our Cleveland Cavaliers because of how careless they are with the basketball. James Harden, the story is there already, right? I don't need to expand too much upon it. The turnover battle, even Donovan Mitchell at points this offseason or this postseason now, and that's why the questions we have in the offseason are the questions we have. But I think Victor Wembanyama is going to have a cleaner game tonight. I think you'll get a very strong Victor Wembanyama performance. In fact, I said this could be a game 2 to remember for Mr. Wembanyama. I think he could absolutely have a game 2 that we talk about for years to come. We'll see, and maybe I eat my words, but I just don't see 6 of 21 from the floor for Victor Wembanyama tonight. I don't see 6 turnovers. I just don't see it, right? And also with the Spurs, De'Aaron Fox, we brought him up for a moment. He shot 3 of 13 from the floor. He was scoreless from the field in terms of the fourth quarter. He had 7 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, but he turned the ball over 3 times. It just wasn't the prettiest thing. And then when you look at Dylan Harper, right? Dylan Harper, 28 minutes of play, 16 points. He had 8 rebounds and assists. He only turned the ball over once, also accompanied a steal. Dylan Harper, rookie out of Rutgers, Ron Harper's son, has been such an impact player for the San Antonio Spurs, one of the better shooters for them in the season, that you would imagine, okay, if I'm Mitch Johnson, I'm the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, and I have El Jefe, as they call Greg Popovich, the president of basketball operations for San Antonio. Maybe I'm hoping, Pop, if you're a San Antonio Spurs fan, and I got a lot of guys I rock with down there in San Antonio that I'm rooting for. If you got my honest opinion, I'm rooting for the Spurs. I had Spurs in 5. It doesn't look like Spurs in 5, but you wonder if you're Mitch Johnson, if you had this conversation with Popovich, like, what do I do about Dylan Harper in terms of a good way? Do I lean on him more than De'Aaron Fox? Because I've heard the conversations about how De'Aaron Fox helps Stephon Castle. Now, remember, real quick, Victor Wembanyama taken with, the first overall pick 3 seasons ago. Then 3 seasons ago, 3 drafts ago. 2 seasons ago, you had Stephon Castle with the 4th overall pick. Then Dylan Harper with the 3rd overall pick for the San Antonio Spurs. And they've shaped this big 3, this homegrown big 3. Now it's time to lean into that, right? If you're the San Antonio Spurs, yes, De'Aaron Fox has been a great addition to the team. He's been somebody who was second overall for Dylan Harper. I want to fact check myself there. 2nd overall, so even better. Top 3 pick. But De'Aaron Fox here, right? De'Aaron Fox, you brought him over from Sacramento. If you're San Antonio, brought him over. He played almost a decade in San Antonio. He or excuse me, in Sacramento. Apologies. Brought him over for Sacramento, played a decade almost in Sacramento, was the man, right? And they tried to make it work with Domantas Sabonis. They tried to, make it work with DeMar DeRozan, brought in, everything they could, right? Zach LaVine was there for a moment. They had an opportunity to do something, and Sacramento just kind of did what the Kings have done most of the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s, and kind of fell on their face. So De'Aaron Fox out right after Mike Brown pretty much removed, fired from the team, let go. Mike Brown now and De'Aaron Fox playing on opposite sides in the NBA Finals. How about that? The Sacramento Kings kind of looking at this like, not great. But game one wasn't a shining moment for De'Aaron Fox. I don't think he'll shoot that poorly. However, he just never looked to find his rhythm, or found his rhythm, that is. He just struggled from the floor. In the fourth quarter, he was kind of more of a liability than an asset. And you're wondering why Dylan Harper only played 3 minutes and 33 seconds in that game one of the fourth quarter game one. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And if you're the Spurs, you have to lean on the big three that got you here. Your homegrown big three. Yes, Fox has helped. Yes, you have Devin Vassell that has helped out as well. You've had Keldon Johnson, the sixth man of the year. You have guys there. However, it all starts and ends with Wemby, and then his Robbins in a way, right? Stephon Castle, who's very physical on defense, is going to make you feel him on offense, going to get right to the hole, and he's going to get physical. He's not afraid of contact, and neither is Dylan Harper. I saw somebody on social media the other night saying that Dylan Harper has some of the prettiest under-the-basket moves, somewhat Kyrie Irving-esque. And I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I think the Spurs should lean into those three guys to get them the victory tonight in San Antonio. They need a win tonight. They can't afford to go down 0-2 because Madison Square Garden is going to be rocking. When I tell you Madison Square Garden is going to be rocking, it's going to be rocking. And if the Knicks are up 2-0, and they just got to get two more to get to their first NBA championship since 1973, that could be bad news for the San Antonio Spurs, which, again, they have held great poise when it comes to, okay, we have to go through our challenges, get to where we're getting to, even get past the defending champions in the Oklahoma City Thunder and beat them on their home court in Game 7. And obviously the emotion from Victor Wembanyama, I love it. Getting to his first finals at 22 years old. But now it's time to face more adversity, and how can you defeat the New York Knicks? Well, you're going to have to lean on this big three. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep talking a little bit more NBA Finals when we come back. Of course, later on in the show, we will talk about the NBA and its expansion plans. What does that mean for the NBA? Should they take a page out of the NHL's playbook? Keep an eye on that as well. Later, we'll talk MLB. Aaron Judge, he's out for the foreseeable future. He'll get re-imaging in 4 to 6 weeks. What does that mean for the Yankees? What's that mean for the Guardians and the rest of the American League? We'll talk about that. Of course, we'll have some fun along the way, talk about some goofy things I've learned this morning as I get ready for the weekend. You get ready for the weekend. We all get ready for the weekend here on the Inside Edge Network. This is the Inside Edge morning show on the Inside Edge Network. I'm Eli Moon, filling in for Omar Claussell Jr., and we'll be back after it. It was going to be wow. Hey, I'm going to go get another cup of coffee. We'll be back right after this.
Clean energy, bold flavors, and no jitters. See why people won't shut up about Dubby. Clean energy, no jitters or crash. Whether you're starting your workday or getting ready to exercise, Dubby Energy helps you lock in and focus. With over 15 flavors to choose from, you can't miss. Order Dubby Energy right now by using the QR code on your screen and use the promo code InsideEdge10 to receive 10% off your order. Dubby Energy, your energy-focused sponsor of the Inside Edge Network, Cleveland's digital leader. Mosser Moments Photography is a husband and wife wedding photography team based in Cleveland, owned and operated by Inside Edge Network's very own Ryan Mosser and his wife Hallie. For the past 10 years, they've captured more than 100 weddings across Northeast Ohio and beyond, always working together as a true two-person team. Their style centers on authentic, emotional storytelling, documenting the real moments between two people in love and creating images that feel natural, comfortable, and true to the couple. Rooted in Northern Ohio but inspired by their travels, Ryan and Hallie bring a warm, personal approach to every wedding day. Their work blends experience, consistency, and a genuine passion for helping couples relive their best day through timeless photography. Learn more at MosserMomentsPhotography.com by using the QR code on your screen right now. MosserMomentsPhotography.com, a proud sponsor of the Inside Edge Network, Cleveland's digital leader.
It's obviously, I mean, it's not. We've been down in the series before, never in the finals, obviously. But I'm not kicking myself about anything really. I mean, I'm not worried the slightest.
And welcome back. Good morning. If you're just joining us, you're not late. Don't worry. It's the Inside Edge Network morning show with Omar Claussell Jr. I am filling in. And who am me? Who am I? I am who I say I am, as Eminem once said. I am Eli Moon. We are back here. Oh, BRB. No, not BRB. I'm here. Don't worry. I'm here. I'm Eli Moon. I'm here back with you on the Inside Edge Network this morning on the morning show. Oh my goodness. Good morning to everybody from the east to the west to the west to the east. If it's on the East Coast, it's 9:24. If you're in Central Time, 8:24 to all my Texan friends, San Antonio peeps I got out there and all across the great state of Texas. And of course, if you're on the West Coast, it's 6:24 in the morning. So you're starting your early morning with the Inside Edge Network and myself. It's awesome to have you here. Awesome. Again, Omar will be back with you next week. Just taking care of some things. He will be back with you next week, but I'm here with you for the next hour and a half or so, and I cannot wait to get into some more sports with you. You heard from Victor Wembanyama there. He talked, courtesy of SportsCenter and ESPN, about how they're not worried, that they know they're better than this. They know they can play better than they did in game one, where they fell 105-95 to the New York Knicks. They're looking to regroup and get to a 1-1 series tie. They'll play tonight at 8:30. It'll be on ABC. How about that, folks? I think I was talking to you while I was muted. If that wasn't a morning sign, then I don't know what is. How about this? Let's try it again. Good morning. I'm Eli Moon. Hope you had your second cup of coffee. Omar Claussell Jr. filling in. I'm filling in for him. We'll be back with you next week. Was talking about the Spurs while you saw my mouth is moving. it was talking about Wembanyama. You heard from the Sports Center in the ESPN clip. You heard about how he said he's not worried, he's not concerned about where the Spurs go from here. They know they'll be better than this, and I know I'll be better than those last 15 seconds where I just talked with my mic muted. My golly, what a start to the morning. Again, I was giving the big breakdown. I can't believe it. We missed you. If you're here with us, it's now 9:26 on the East Coast. 8:26 on the Central Time for my Texan friends, my San Antonio peeps, and all across the great state of Texas. And it's 6:26 a.m. on the West Coast. So you're starting your early morning with the Inside Edge Network and myself. Thank you. Again, Omar back with you next week. But my gosh, how about talking with your mic muted? Eli, you went to broadcasting school. I took the course. I did pretty well, and I was in the broadcasting game. Took a little bit of a break, pursue my music career, which is what I'm still doing with LaHaley and the collective and building with that, the collective and the community. But also here on the Inside Edge Network, I serve as the assistant program director, which don't tout that around. I just mention that I am because what that means is I dive into programming and I help with that, help with behind the scenes. And it's so cool to see all the great weekly, daily, all of that, all the coverage here on the Inside Edge Network. We have a lot of great hosts and programs for you. And you can stay locked in with this show right here with Omar Claussell Jr., the morning show, and all of the great daily and weekly coverage at Inside Edge Net on all the socials, YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, all of that great stuff. Go ahead and lock in, hit that notification bell so you know when we're going live. A follow and all that great stuff means the world to us because we're Cleveland's digital leader, your source for sports, entertainment, mental health conversations, news, and everything in between. And of course, InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Again, InsideEdgeNetwork.com is where you're going to want to go read about your favorite personalities. And look, I understand I may be one of them, but there's so many great personalities here on the Inside Edge Network. Make sure you read about, go check out the professional photos, as Kyle Cordell said yesterday on Unfiltered, which you can see 5 to 6 p.m. here weekdays, including today here this afternoon. He mentioned, Double A gives us a hard time, man. Professional photos. I sent the photo in. You can go check it out at InsideEdgeNetwork.com, where I thought I looked pretty nice. I had the hair tied up, I had the glasses on, little fashion glasses. I thought I looked pretty cool, man. And then Double A told me I needed something a little bit more professional. Yeah, so we're working on professional photos. Maybe I'll get some done this weekend. Got a lot to do. Hopefully you do too. If you're here with us, chime in. I'd love to hear what you got going on this weekend. Put it up on the screen and let's have a conversation. But I'll continue to spout off here and just say some things. InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Personalities page, of course. Our partners, we couldn't do it without them. W Energy, Mosser Moments, SportsMemorabilia.com, Fanatics.com, and Alley Rose Fragrances.com. And of course, you can go to the shop. Go get some merch for the Inside Edge Network, Cleveland's digital leader. Mugs, hats, polos, shirts, windbreakers. Yes, Kyle, windbreakers, my bro. Happy belated birthday. I wish him on his birthday, but he's 2 days into being 32. I know that's his favorite number, so he's going to hopefully have one of his favorite years of his life. I'm wishing nothing but the best and blessings his way, blessings your way here on this Friday. What's the weather like where you're at? Where is the weather? What is the weather? What even is weather anymore? In Cleveland, we try to figure that out. It goes from, I'm not going to say the S word, but it goes from, it rhymes with no with an S, at the beginning. I try to stay away from that. But we have that, and now we're finally into the summer. Double A was talking about when's it supposed to rain again, and why? Why do we need rain, Double A? I know we need precipitation, but put the AC on, just relax a little bit. It's supposed to be a 75% chance last time I checked on Saturday, so maybe we get some rain. Maybe Double A will be a little happier because he gets some rain in his life. But hey, hopefully it doesn't rain down on the San Antonio Spurs tonight in San Antonio as they take on the New York Knicks in Game 2. That is going to be where Victor Wembanyama comes to play. You heard from him there. Again, courtesy clip of SportsCenter and ESPN coming back from break. But the Knicks and the Spurs, they're going to go to battle, and it's going to come down to Victor Wembanyama. And if I was a betting man, which I bet, 50-cent bets here and there, I would say Victor Wembanyama is going to have a better game too. I'm almost confident that he'll shoot better first off than 6 of 21 from the floor. I think he'll have less than 6 turnovers, so that alone will provide a better game. But I think the big thing too is, everybody's talking about how he had a rough game, and I'm here saying a little bit too. It's crazy to me that he had a rough game, but he still put 26 points up. I believe 12 rebounds is confirming here. Yeah, 26 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and 3 blocks. So a bad game for Victor Wembanyama is something Cavs fans would be clamoring for. It's what we talk about all the time with Evan Mobley. When is Evan Mobley going to turn into the next, Victor Wembanyama? I tried to say Victor, and I tried to say next at the same time. Well, it's not the greatest idea. But, you got when is the next Victor Wembanyama going to come here? When is Evan Mobley going to turn into him, even though he's older than Wembanyama? When is Mobley going to turn into Giannis? And here's the reality, Cavs fans. Victor Wembanyama, Giannis Antetokounmpo, they're in different leagues than Evan Mobley. Now, they all play in the NBA. They all, play the big man position, but Evan Mobley is what he is, and I don't think we're going to see too much more growth from Evan Mobley. I think he's a standout defensive player of the year, whether you argue about, well, he didn't get it, he got it because of the threshold and all that's okay, well, then we have to have a conversation about a few other awards too, right? So he did win defensive player of the year a few years ago, and I think that's okay. Like, he's a good, if not great, defensive player, and I think he also is somebody that can provide offense in bunches, right? We've seen Evan Mobley have, some big offensive games, but the idea that he's going to have a 40-point game or, a triple-double or so, it's just not likely. And that's the reason he's in trade discussions for the Cavaliers this offseason. Why we're talking about maybe getting Giannis Antetokounmpo here to Cleveland, why we're talking about bringing in somebody to help get the Cavaliers over the hump to get to the spot where the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs are tonight. Again, game 2 tonight. It is Knicks. It is Spurs. Knicks up 1-0 in the series. And again, they're going to have to lean on the guys that have got them there, but they're going to have to continue to get good performance out of the role players. I think Josh Hart will have a better game from the floor in terms of shooting the ball. And I think, you probably get a little bit more out of Mikal Bridges too. What's that mean for OG Anunoby? Does he continue to play well? Because if you can get the same performance out of OG Anunoby, get a few more buckets out of Hart, a few more buckets out of Bridges, and then you see Landry Shamet giving you 13 off the bench, Jose Alvarado giving you 7, and Deuce McBride, McBride 6 points off the bench. The Knicks are deep, right? They have a team that is just incredibly deep. They have a ton of depth, and I am not running from that, in terms of this discussion. I think that is something that is going to help them greatly. They're a strong team, led by Jalen Brunson, and then right behind him, Karl Anthony Towns. However, I think the Spurs' depth is right there with them, and I think the Spurs have more guys that can make an impact when they're playing their best basketball. I get it. You look at after the fact, the Spurs, mind you, played a 10-man rotation in game one. That bench consisting of Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, Carter Bryant, Luke Cornett, and Dylan Harper. Obviously, Luke Cornett with some great playoff experience. I know he doesn't get talked about a ton, but a big man that can provide some great experience. You also have Keldon Johnson, 6th man of the year, who didn't play very well. 1 of 4 from the floor, 3 points. Just not really a non-factor, But I think, you look at Dylan Harper, and that's going to be the guy I talked about in the first segment, that you look at if you're the San Antonio Spurs and go, we need more out of you. We'll give you the bucket. We'll give you the ball to get to the bucket, right? 3 minutes and 33 seconds played in the fourth quarter when he had 16 points going into it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I know De'Aaron Fox, he's a veteran. He's been almost a decade. So by my watch, he is a veteran. We joke all the time, Kyle and I, about what is a veteran, who is a veteran, what makes a veteran. But De'Aaron Fox, a veteran, obviously. But if he's shooting that poorly, Mitch Johnson's got to make the call sooner than later and go, hey, we need you out. We got to put Dylan Harper in. We got to lean on these guys that have got us here. And if he doesn't, then you could be staring at a 2-0 New York Knicks lead going back to Madison Square Garden, to New York, out of San Antonio, and could be bad for the Spurs team because, yes, again, I remember, I talked about it. Remember, in the first segment, the Spurs team is battle-tested. They are battle-tested in ways, right? Now, I get it. Some people are going to say, well, not multiple postseasons like the New York Knicks, and they haven't gone through their struggles like the New York Knicks where they've got so close but haven't got there. I get it. Teams go through different battles and are tested in different ways. And the Spurs have had to take down the defending champs on their home floor. That's battle-tested, especially with the young roster. They have 3 guys that are under 23 years old in Wembanyama, Castle, and Harper. And I think they got to lean on those guys. They got to lean on that big 3. They got to lean on what got them there. Wembanyama's got to be a little bit more slowed down with the basketball. It seemed like the Knicks, right out the gates in game 1, they wanted to go fast. They wanted to run, and see how the Spurs responded. And the Spurs were like, well, we'll match your pace. And it turned into a lot of bad shots, poor corner threes from Fox and other guys. And it just turned bad for a moment. The Spurs were able to regroup and take the lead before the Knicks snatched it back and eventually took the victory later on in the fourth quarter. But you got to slow down. I talked about it with the Cavaliers, and it shocked me for a moment. I'll be real. that the Knicks were playing so fast-paced, because I imagine them more as a half-court offense. Bring it up slow, run the clock, pass it around, find the open look. Little ISO ball with Jalen Brunson, little pick and roll action with Cat and Mitchell Robinson when he's in there. Okay. But the fact that they were playing so fast in game one, at the start of game one, I looked at Papa Moon. We were watching the game together, and I was like, Pops, they are running. They are running down that floor. And he goes, yeah, it's kind of shocking. And it was shocking because the Knicks usually don't play basketball like that. But I think they wanted to test the Spurs and see, okay, how can we get this young team rattled if they're not playing their game? Spurs not necessarily a super fast team either. They're going to play half court offense, and they got to get into that half court early and slow down. They got to go, hey, we're going to get the ball in Victor Wembanyama's hands. We're going to have him make those crucial passes and find the open man, and the attention is going to be there. There's going to be at least two guys at most times on Victor Wembanyama. How he responds to that pressure, to that defense, is going to be the biggest key in game two. That and getting Dylan Harper more minutes. 3 minutes and 33 seconds for your third best player, maybe second best player on the team, isn't going to cut it. Yeah, you can't do that. You cannot lean into a guy just because he's a veteran. And I love De'Aaron Fox. I think he was great. I loved him at Kentucky, way back under Coach Cal at, the University of Kentucky. However, it is his first finals as well. Just like Harper, just like Castle, just like Wemby, just like a lot of guys on this team. It's his first finals too. How is he going to respond? How is he going to handle the pressure? And if he's not handling it well, Mitch Johnson, you only get 4 chances to lose. Really, 3 chances. Let's take that back. 3 chances. Fourth one, the Knicks are hoisting the trophy. So you got to make decisions. You got to make decisions quickly. You got to be able to be on the fly with this. It's something that we saw Kenny Atkinson struggle with, not to bring it back to Cleveland, but hey, we're Cleveland's digital leader. We saw Kenny Atkinson struggle with that against the New York Knicks. The rotations weren't the same rotations we had saw that got them success against the Detroit Pistons and Toronto Raptors in the series before, and they weren't able to respond to punches in the mouth, quick runs. The Knicks are a team that can go on a 13-0 run, an 18-0 run. They can do it quickly and make you feel like you're on, you spin on top of your head. You're upside down. It's upside down world. And the Spurs, a young team, have to be able to play their game and lean onto their strengths. Wembanyama's going to give you that defense. He's going to give you a great game, even if it's not the most efficient game. He's still going to give you 26 and 12 on a bad night. So that's why I believe, one, he's going to have a big game tonight. I think a monumental game. One of those game twos we talk about for a while. And I think you're going to see more out of Dylan Harper. I think you'll see more minutes out of Dylan Harper. He had 26 minutes, I believe. I'm checking here, just confirming. 28 minutes for Dylan Harper. I think you see that go over 30, I think you get maybe 32, 33 minutes, an extra 5 minutes. Could lead into an extra 3-4 baskets for Dylan Harper. Getting him the basketball, getting him involved is going to be big. And Stephon Castle, 17 points at 7 of 16 shooting, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Turned the ball over twice, but as opposed to 20 turnovers in the first 2 games against OKC, I'll say that's not as bad, right? And Castle, again, we were talking about it in the first segment, bring it back. He leans into when De'Aaron Fox, is on the floor because he helps kind of facilitate, kind of take the pressure off him, help lead the offense. So Castle can also be aggressive and go drive because he can get a bucket. How are the Spurs going to respond? How are the Knicks going to respond? They've had 8 days of rest going into game 1. Now they're back on a regular schedule, but they got that rest. The Madison Square Garden is rocking. How are they going to respond? So we'll keep an eye on all of that. We'll see if they go up 2-0 tonight or if the San Antonio Spurs win and go 1-1. But if I was, again, a betting man, and every now and then a 50-cent bet goes in, I would say I got the Spurs tonight. I think the Spurs win. I think they win by, at least 6 points, 6 to 8 points. I could see them winning, stretching it late, and going back to New York, tied 1-1. They're going to have to take one in New York now. Home court advantage back to New York at this point. They're going to have to take one in New York. Of course, I had Spurs in 5. I don't think it's going to be Spurs in 5, but I still think they win this series. But they have to adapt, and they have to adapt quickly. It's on Mitch Johnson to do so. It's on the guys on the floor to be able to hit their shots and play a little bit more efficiently, or this New York Knicks team is going to eat them alive. Because Mike Brown, we remember him here in Cleveland, 2 stints. Not 1, 2 stints here in Cleveland, and he's known as a defensive-minded coach. He's going to bring that pressure on defense. He talked about how he handles going against James Harden in the Cavaliers series, that he realized, hey, you're going to dribble a lot, so we're going to press you at full court. We're going to make you bring the ball up the court and tire you out by the 4th quarter. He's going to bring that same full court press at times during this series. How do the Spurs respond? We'll see. 8:30 tonight at on ABC in San Antonio. That'll be the New York Knicks, San Antonio Spurs. Will it be 1-1 or will it be 2-0 New York after tonight? We'll keep an eye on that. Of course, we'll have coverage all night long. We have programming here throughout the day. I'm with you till 11 a.m. Then on Filter with Kyle Cordell, 5 to 6 p.m. Then you have Inside Edge Primetime with Chad Bryan and myself, 10 to 11 p.m. And then, of course, Midnight Run with Double A Anthony out from midnight to 1. Double A told me, hey, I need you to take the day off. He told me that yesterday, too. So I need to take the day off. And I found a little bit of energy, just a little bit, mustered it up. And I got into that next gear, and I said, dude, I got to run with you tonight. We got a midnight run. And we talked about breakfast food and everything like that. It got me hungry. So I'm going to see, I won't be able to catch the breakfast rush, however, this morning. I didn't get there before the show. So I will have to settle for lunch and figure out what's going on there. But I will get some grub after the show. Hopefully you're grubbing down, having some good food, enjoying your breakfast. I usually say dinner, but that's because I'm on the nighttime. Hopefully you're enjoying your breakfast, your coffee, all that great stuff. Remember, again, like, subscribe, follow at InsideEdge.net on all the socials. Again, like, subscribe, follow InsideEdge.net, YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, all of that great stuff. Go ahead and hit that notification bell so you know when we're all going live. And then go over to InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Again, InsideEdgeNetwork.com. It's going to where you're going to want to read about your favorite personalities like myself and everybody else. Go over to the shop page, get a mug, a hat, a windbreaker, a polo, a shirt. Rep Cleveland's digital leader in your source for sports, entertainment, mental health conversations, news, and everything in between. And go over to our partners page, get some great deals. Right now, AliRoseFragrances.com is running Inside Edge 20 for first-time customers. That means you get a great candle, you get a great body mist for somebody you love for 20% off your entire order. And then, of course, W Energy Inside Edge 10, 10% off your order. Get some energy, get going, have a strong morning, not a weak morning, a strong morning. And, of course, rock out all there at the partners page on InsideEdgeNetwork.com, Cleveland's digital leader, and your source for everything I mentioned. Sports, entertainment, mental health conversations, news, everything in between. And, hey, maybe I gave you a good tip on how to make your coffee this morning. I know every now and then some people put Baileys in their coffee, get a little juice in the morning. I don't drink anymore, so I stay away from the Baileys. But I'll tell you, as long as I got my coffee and I got my nicotine, then we're doing all right. So I hope you're doing all right out there as well. I'm Eli Moon, filling in for Omar Claussell Jr. here on the Inside Edge Network Morning Show. He'll be back with you next week, but we're with you for another, let's say, hour and 20 roughly, and I'm rocking here with you. I'm enjoying the morning. Hope you are too. We're going to come back here on the Inside Edge Network and talk maybe a little more finals, but then we'll pivot to the NBA expansion. I think it's time we pivot to the NBA expansion. We had that talk yesterday. We played the clips on primetime about Adam Silver talking about expansion, potentially in Seattle and Las Vegas. What does this mean? Is it a good idea? And should the NBA take a page out of the NHL's playbook? We'll talk about that and much more here on the Inside Edge Network Morning Show. I'm Eli Moon, filling in for Omar Claussell Jr. We're back right after this.
Whether searching for a baseball autographed by your favorite World Series slugger, a signed football by an iconic Hall of Famer, or the jersey of a world-famous soccer star, you've come to the right place. Here at sportsmemorabilia.com, the web's leading source of authentic sports memorabilia, you'll find more than 500,000 authentic products from nearly every professional sports league, team, and players. Not only will you find your next prized sports possession with ease thanks to superb customer service and tremendous site experience, you'll have the satisfaction and peace of mind that every product listed comes complete with a certificate of authenticity and is fully backed by the sportsmemorabilia.com lifetime authenticity guarantee. Go to sportsmemorabilia.com by using the QR code on your screen right now. Sportsmemorabilia.com, a proud sponsor of the Inside Edge Podcast Network, Cleveland's digital leader.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Chad, Brian, and Eli Moon. We are Inside Edge Primetime here on the Inside Edge Network, and we had a really fun show where we talked about not only Spurs and Knicks game 1, but on top of the Knicks doing something unthinkable when they came back again. Who would have saw that, right? They beat the Spurs 105-95. They're up 1-0 in the NBA Finals. And did you see that fan that rushed the court? Buddy, you chose the wrong guy to try to get a selfie with. Victor Wembanyama's a tall guy. Chad, we talked about that, but we also talked about the NBA commissioner, Adam Silver. He had some thoughts. It seemed like from tanking to a lot of other stuff.
Silver had plenty of thoughts. The direction that the NBA is headed in is, I think we both agree, pretty good, even though there might be some of the things we don't love about it, but I think they're doing the right thing business-wise. And, Eli, what the heck is Jim Schwartz talking about? He finally speaks out after leaving the Browns in a huff, and he said a lot of things on a podcast that I just didn't make a lot of sense to me. Some of it sounded like lip service. You'll have to watch the show to check that out. I don't know, man.
Yeah. It was a fun Thursday show. Jim Schwartz, buddy, we hope you get some peace of mind now that you have made your decision. But yeah, crazy Thursday show. We're back with you tonight here on Inside Edge Primetime, 10 o'clock here on the Inside Edge Network. Make sure you follow Inside Edge Net on all the socials and go check the website out, InsideEdgeNetwork.com, InsideEdgeNetwork.com. See you. And welcome back to the Inside Edge Network morning show with Omar Claussell Jr. I'm your fill-in host today. I'm Eli Moon, and I'm rocking with you here until 11 a.m. Welcome back, everybody. That BRB screen is kicking my behind this morning. Hopefully, work or whatever you're doing right now while you're listening isn't kicking your behind. Hopefully, you're having a smooth morning, whether you're at your 9 to 5 or you're just waking up and getting rolling, having your coffee. If you're retired, and you're just tuning in, hey, happy retirement. Hope you're enjoying yourself. You should have a little bit of time to watch some finals and all that great stuff or whatever you're getting into. It's a beautiful day in Cleveland, Ohio. A lot of great music. Obviously, I'm in the music world. I'm an artist. I also am a community creator. I book shows here in Cleveland and out of state. For the collective, I'm a part of Lahele and other artists and just the community in general. I'm big on that. So a lot of great music here this weekend. I know Trust is performing this weekend, but formerly Candace. They're doing their thing. Great lineup in general over there. I believe that's over at Garage Shop. And then you have some other things as well throughout the weekend. Just music-wise, really cool. Just very excited. I'm going to get out and enjoy some sunshine, maybe go for a walk. I'm enjoying the weather. It's going to be 85 degrees in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, we're going to talk NBA expansion here in a minute. I got to get something off my chest. Nothing bad. Okay, nobody worry. Nobody panic. Okay, nobody panic. I'm not panicking, so you shouldn't panic. What's your go-to morning song right now? That song you put on that you're like, okay, you know what? I got some pep in my step. Today it's Friday, but it could be your Monday, your Tuesday, your Wednesday, your Thursday song. But what is your Friday song that gets some pep in your step? It's Friday, it's the weekend, you're moving. My family, right? Mama and Papa Moon, they raised me on a ton of different music. They raised me on, Mama, I always, joke, but it's serious. Mama raised me on, R&B, smooth, old school R&B and new R&B. And, Uncle Charlie Wilson was playing a lot in the morning and, getting ready for school. You hear Charlie Wilson and Jaheim and Fabulous. And, you hear all these, great artists. Ja Rule, you hear Jennifer Lopez. I mean, I'm Real still gets some rotation. It's just incredible. And Papa Moon raised me primarily on country and pop, right? If I needed a good country song, if I knew I need to listen to some Garth Brooks or some George Strait or whatever, I'd go to Papa Moon, right? Now Papa Moon exposed me to like some of my first like rap music, with Eminem and the Encore album, Mockingbird, my first song I ever really remember listening to, which again, I always say is the craziest first rap song you can remember listening to. But alas, here we are, 7 years later into music, and 28 years later in life, 28 years later in life. So, blessed beyond belief. But what is my morning go-to song right now? I got to be honest. It's Dolly Parton, Two Doors Down. I mean, can't really sing too much of it because copyright, but it's like two doors down. Come on, like what a vibe. What an absolute vibe. Dolly Parton, if you're not a country music fan, then maybe you don't realize how important Dolly Parton is, was, is, will be for country music. But one of the biggest staples of country music, especially on the female side, like paved the way for a lot of female artists to be able to be different in country music, and stand out, to pop their stuff, to do their thing. And that's where Dolly Parton has done what she has done. It's so cool. So Two Doors Down, I've been jamming it. I was dancing this morning at like 7:30 in the morning to Two Doors Down. I had to keep it down a little bit because Two Doors Down, Papa Moon was sleeping. So I had to be a little careful, right? But that's my jam. Two Doors Down by Dolly Parton, of course. Listen to a little bit of hip hop and rap as well throughout the morning, and just a mix of everything. I listened to a little bit of Wide Open Spaces by the Chicks. They used to be known as the Dixie Chicks, or the Chicks now. But you listen to them, jammed out to them. Man, just some great music, some great vibes. Again, 85 degrees was supposed to be the high in Cleveland. So I'm having a great day. Hope you are too. Adam Silver, I'd imagine he had a good day. He got to talk to the NBA media, a few nights ago before game 1 of the NBA Finals. Talked about a lot of things, and we covered a little bit on InsideEdge Primetime last night. Chad and I, we talked about how Silver talked about going to Europe, having an independent league maybe, and starting that up in 27, 28. What does that mean in terms of, expansion and things like that? And we'll probably get to that clip a little bit later on in the segment. He also talked about tanking and how that's not a new issue, and I agree. It was happening near the end of Commissioner David Stern's run and bled into Adam Silver's run, and he's trying to stop it, and I know a lot of people disagree with the tanking thing. Hey, it's not right. 1, 2, and 3 should get the best chance. But when you have teams actively sitting their guys, not just having a bad roster, there's a difference between having a bad roster and actively sitting your guys. If you have a bad roster, the Cavaliers, Chad and I were looking at Cavaliers rosters when Kyrie Irving first got here. He was out there rocking with Christian Iyenga and, my goodness, Manny Harris. So, I hope those guys are doing well, but obviously the talent level just wasn't there. But you look at that compared to the Utah Jazz this past season, had Kevin Love, who could still contribute at a decent level to a high level at times, and guys like Keontae George, Ace Bailey on the younger side, Lauri Markkanen, and these guys sitting for random things. And again, random things. You have the Washington Wizards allowing an 83-point game, break Kobe's record for Bam Adebayo, and congratulations to Bam, and the Heat had a great celebration that night. But those things shouldn't be as easy to obtain, and the Wizards made it easy to obtain because of the lack of care. Anthony Davis and Trae Young on the roster, they sat since they were traded for. They'll make their Wizards debut this season. Crazy to think about. You just can't have that. So if you're Adam Silver, you got to do something. It's not going to be liked by many, by most, it appears. But I agree with the move. This is as close as you're going to get to relegation. Chad and I talked last night about how the NBA, we're going to hear it here about expansion and, even over to Europe, how they want to kind of be more so like international brand, right? They want to be international overseas, and soccer does the relegation. If you don't play well enough, you go down to the next league, the lower league, and you got to work your way back up. The NBA is probably never going to do, let me even take the probably out. The NBA is never going to do relegation. They're never going to tell a team, hey, you're doing this, you're gone. What are they going to send them to? The G League, the NCAA? I just don't see it. I don't see it. But this is the closest thing you'll get to relegation. Hey, you know what? You could tank. You could try to play the system, but the system isn't working in your favor anymore. You get less an opportunity to get a top draft pick, a top 3 draft pick, and it's going to favor the teams that are bad just by nature. They had a bad year. The star player goes out and he's injured, or whatever. They just don't have the roster. They're going to be able to benefit off that for at least being competitive and get rewarded more often than not. Now, if a team beats the system, and it'll probably happen, obviously, a few times where a team that doesn't deserve the number one pick because of how they decided to get there will get the number one pick. And that'll be an issue at a different time or a discussion at another time. However, I think these rules, this new change, these changes have allowed the NBA to be like, okay, we're stopping or we're curving tanking, whatever, as much as we can right now. So I think this is good by the NBA, and I'm in favor of it. I commend Adam Silver. I think it's a good move. So maybe I'm in the minority there, but I'll be in the minority for that because I believe it's going to help the league and bring competitiveness back instead of having 14 teams that are actively tanking. Because what happens if it keeps moving up and we have 6 teams that actually want to play and then the other rest are playing for the NBA draft lottery? It doesn't make sense. We need 20 to 24, 25 teams competing, playing well, at least giving it their all every night. That's what the fans paid hard-earned money to see. I'm sure that's what the sponsors, the owner, the owners want to see. Because I get it. You say the owners, are involved in tanking, and I'm sure to a degree, but you wonder how much of it is the general managers, the front office playing games, trying to sell it on this ownership that, hey, this is what is best for business. So keep an eye on that. But Adam Silver has some other comments about expansion. We've heard about Seattle and Las Vegas, Seattle having the Supersonics, and they're coming back with the Supersonics. Hopefully, maybe if they bring it back to Seattle, told Chad maybe the Super Duper Sonics. I don't know if OKC owns those rights, but I don't think they would. We'll keep an eye on that. And then Vegas. Of course, Vegas is a hotbed for everything right now, from gambling to entertainment to nightlife to all that stuff. And now they have a bunch of sports teams. You wonder if those two teams are the right cities. I tend to think yes, but does Adam Silver believe that expansion should happen for these two cities and in general for the NBA? He talked to the NBA media before game 1 of the NBA Finals, the Knicks and Spurs game 1. I got all these clips from Oh No He Didn't on Twitter, so I want to go out and give them credit, but this, of course, from the NBA media as well. This is Adam Silver talking about expansion. Take a look.
Expansion, yeah, sorry. So on the expansion front, discussions are ongoing. As I think everyone knows at this point, we're focused on Las Vegas and Seattle. There's multiple groups interested in both cities. We're in discussions with them. And the timeline is that, as I've said before, it's not a foregone conclusion that we will expand either in one city or both cities. But what we've told all interested parties is our anticipation our board will make a decision by the end of this calendar year.
A lot of discussion regarding Seattle, Las Vegas, in those two cities, and Adam Silver being very confident and poised with his words that, hey, we've talked, we don't know if it's going to be both cities or, just one of the cities, and where we have a timeline. Now, reports are coming out that the NBA is looking to expand, and they're looking to go to 32 teams. They're looking to bring it to cities that are going to care about the teams. The NHL, and we'll talk about them in a little bit, they have seen it before where they put hockey in cities that truthfully just don't care that much about hockey. They aren't hockey towns. They've tried to make it work, and then they've had to move on to different cities. Sometimes when you put, for example, hockey in a warmer city, is not always going to work out because you're going to be on the beach. You're going to be in the pool. You're going to be walking, looking at the sunset on the pier or whatever. It may not work. Hockey may not work there. So does basketball work in Seattle? Well, last time I checked it worked for decades in Seattle. So I think Seattle would make a ton of sense. And then again, we talked about it before the clip. Courtesy again of Oh No He Didn't, the NBA media before game 1 of the finals. We talked about the Vegas. They have the Aces in WNBA. They have the Raiders in the NFL. They have a ton of teams right now. They are looking to bring over the Athletics in Major League Baseball. Of course, the Vegas Golden Knights in the NHL. We'll talk about them in a little bit. In their 3rd Stanley Cup appearance since starting up in 2017. They've already won one. They're 1-1 in finals. They dropped yesterday's game. In a shocker, right? I thought they had the Carolina Hurricanes, but the Hurricanes came back, tied it up 1-1. We'll keep an eye on that, but Vegas is a hotbed for sports right now. They are expanding a ton in Vegas with the Athletics, not just the baseball team, the Athletics, but athletics in general, sports in general. So very interesting there. As far as expansion, I'm all for it, right? 32 teams, it matches the NFL, and as long as the teams are playing competitively, which I think is why Adam Silver's trying to curb tanking before he gets to expansion. One has to happen before the other. We can't have 10 to 12 teams actively trying to be bad to get into position to draft. Like, for example, this year, AJ DeBance out of BYU. Cameron Boozer out of Duke, some other guys, Caleb Wilson out of UNC. You have Darius Acuff out of Arkansas. There's guys there, but you can't have teams actively being bad with talent on their roster to get these guys to load up and go skyrocket to the top. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. It wasn't intended to be that way. It was intended to be, if you're a bad team, if you're just purely bad, then we'll look out and see how we can help by getting you get a top 3 pick. If you win the lottery and you have a good chance to do so. So I think Adam Silver's going to have to curb tanking. He's trying to do so first. Say, hey, you know what? We're not going to do this. We're not going to tank. We're going to have competitiveness in the NBA night in and night out. We're going to be able to put a nationally televised game. And if it's the Utah Jazz against the Golden State Warriors, and we know both teams are going to play, hard, play well. And, I use the Warriors as a placeholder there. The Warriors, despite being in the play-in, continue to at least give an effort, and this is a team that, we know in Cleveland has, multiple NBA championships, not only against the Cavaliers, but they also brought one home against Boston. So 4 NBA championships for Steph, Draymond, and all those guys out there. They're still giving it their all. So why can't the Jazz? Why can't some of these other teams? Adam Silver's looking into that. But I think as far as expansion, I think it would be great. Seattle would be absolutely thrilled to have a basketball team back. They were sad when the Sonics were taken, and a lot of the league and fans around the league were shocked that they were taken. Seattle is a strong sports town. They got the Seahawks. You got the Mariners. They're a strong sports town. I think I believe that they deserve to have a basketball team back. They love their basketball team. I mean, Sean Kemp, you have Kevin Durant even at a time, Gary Payton. Yeah, you have so many names that you think of. I brought up Wally Zerbiak the other day. He was a Supersonic as well. Just think about some of these guys there, from the past. It would be cool to bring back that Supersonics lore in Seattle. And then Vegas, of course, it just makes sense because of everything going on. They're going to be able to support it. There's tons of people in Vegas, so they'll have that place packed out night in and night out, not only from the locals and people rocking out, but from tourists as well that just want to stop in and see a game. So could be interesting, could be very interesting with expansion. What did Adam Silver have to say about Europe and what the plans are there? Let's take a look at this before we go to break.
An independent league in Europe. We are very much on schedule. It is our hope and anticipation that league will launch in the 27-28 season in Europe. As I said, we are on track. Final bids from franchises are due at the end of this month, at the end of the month in June. It has been reported. We've seen record interest, and we're very excited about the ongoing opportunity and working closely with FIBA, our federation.
Interesting, Mr. Silver. Expansion in an independent league potentially starting in 27-28 in Europe. Chad and I talked last night. What does that look like? And there's some concerns, I'm sure, about like competitiveness. What does this mean? Are they just going to play independently? Are they going to just do their own thing? Is it another league the NBA supports, or is it going to turn into these two teams playing against each other? My thought, in the next 10 years, my prediction is they get this league in Europe going. You're going to have them start building to where in 10 or so years, they're going to have an NBA Finals, and it won't be, right now it's the Knicks and the Spurs. It'll be your American representative versus your European representative. I think that's what you're going to see. It's not going to happen overnight. Chad brought up yesterday on primetime the salaries. What happens? They're only paying 10 to 15 million over there, and right now guys are getting paid anywhere from 40 million to 200-300 million. So there is a gap there, right? But I think Adam Silver, like anything, he's going to work through the struggles, try to find a way to make it work. Maybe bring a few teams in to start the league and start having that conversation about, hey, if guys go over there, this is what happens, this is how we build, and eventually create a league that can compete against the NBA. That is one of one, running its own thing, running its own season. That's how I would envision it going. I said that last night. I think the NBA would run its whole season because the travel wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, especially with the way the NBA plays their season. So you have, the NBA runs their season. You're having the American teams play each other. And then, of course, you have the European teams playing each other. This is like down the line once the leagues are established, about close to a decade in once this all gets rolling. And then you have, we have the playoffs for the American teams, and we have the playoffs for the European teams, and then they play in an NBA Finals, and it's not going to be a home court advantage or 7 games. It'll still be a 7-game series, but it won't be home and home, home and home. It'll be cities, states, countries bidding on the NBA Finals, just like they do, on American soil. They bid on the Super Bowl. For the Olympics, they bid internationally, here in the States, and then, of course, across the globe. I see that happening with the NBA Finals. Don't be surprised in 10 years if we see an NBA Finals happening overseas, in a different country. I think it's closer than we think. Now, granted, probably closer to a decade out, but I don't like to think that's too close because I'll be 38 and I'm not trying to think about being almost 40. I know Chad's 46 and he's in his prime, but look, I'm like in my prime then, at that point. I'm 28, right? So I do think it's realistic, though, to think this could be where Adam Silver's mind is. Curb the tanking, get competitiveness, and then create a league where you can have international play. Who's the best in the world? That was a discussion, with Noah Lyles, the USA track athlete, track and field athlete, the Olympian, talking about, well, NFL, players, to pivot for football for a moment, talking about how they're the Super Bowl champions of the world, but they don't play the world. They play American teams. And then saw the flag football, debacle and them kind of get in some trouble and all of that. It was a little bad for NFL players, but regardless, if they're playing tackle football, I don't think there's any country that's playing better than the Americans. However, the NFL wants to grow. We could see that down the line. I think the NBA is a lot closer than the NFL in that regard. They've been expanding. They did the NBA Cares mission. They, continue to do things like that. They expand, they do different things. They bring in different teams to play during NBA preseason, from overseas against NBA teams. So they're doing that. They've been doing that. So I think they have this mindset where they want to be global and they want to have it where, okay, guess what? They are the champions of the world between the USA, Europe, everything. That's where I see it going. So we'll keep an eye on all of that. Of course, clips again from Oh No He Didn't. That was from NBA media availability of Adam Silver before game 1 of the NBA Finals between the Knicks and the Spurs. A lot to keep an eye on there. So we'll have a discussion. If the NBA does go expansion, do they take a page out of the NHL's book? The NHL obviously has the Vegas Golden Knights and the Seattle Kraken that have come into the fold the last 10 years or so. And what do they have going right for them that the NBA may want to follow model-wise, or is it something they should stay away from? Do you want expansion teams being super, super competitive out of nowhere? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? We'll talk about it when we come back. This is the Inside Edge Network morning show. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow at Inside Edge Net on all of the socials, YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch. Hit that notification bell so you know when we're going live. It means the world to us and keeps you locked in with something different. We're Cleveland's digital leader right here in Cleveland, Ohio, but talking about everything across the world, the nation, the world, everything. And of course, if you hit that notification bell, you like, follow, subscribe, Inside Edge Net. You'll stay locked in with all of our great weekly and daily coverage. And of course, go to InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Again, InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Read about your favorite personalities. I won't tell nobody, okay? I won't tell nobody if I'm your favorite personality. But go read about all the great personalities here on the Inside Edge Network. And go over to our partners page, W Energy, Monster Moments, SportsMemorabilia.com, Fanatics.com, and ElioRoseFragrances.com. We appreciate you. Couldn't do it without you. And couldn't do it without you at home. So go over to the shop. Get a mug, a polo, a shirt, a hat, all of that great stuff. A windbreaker. Yes, all of the great stuff. Rep Cleveland's digital leader. And again, your source for sports, entertainment, mental health conversations, news, and everything in between. Get some cool gear. You saw Chad Bryant rocking his Inside Edge Network polo last night. And he looked pretty sharp, if I do say so myself. My bro looked sharp. All right. So we're going to go take a quick break. I elected for a zero sugar caffeinated drink. All right. Didn't go for the second cup of coffee. Maybe later. Well, maybe after the show. All right. We're going to take a quick pause here. This is the Inside Edge Network morning show with Omar Claussell Jr. I'm filling in. I'm Eli Moon, filling in for Omar. He'll be back with you next week. Take a quick pause and we'll come back. We'll talk about if the NBA should take a page out of the NHL's book if they were to expand the league. Back after this.
Find us on InsideEdgeNetwork.com for the latest information on your favorite shows, personalities, and network partners. Plus, guess what? We have a merch shop. That's right, we have network polos, t-shirts, champion jackets, hats, and bottles. Rep the network. Every purchase supports independent sports and entertainment media. Use the QR code on your screen right now to check out InsideEdgeNetwork.com. That's InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Fanatics isn't just our name, it's who we are. Loyal, passionate fans dedicated to our favorite teams and to the sports we love. That's why we're honored to be able to offer fans the world's largest collection of official sports apparel and sports jerseys from all leagues, teams, and players you love. We feature a wide selection of gear from every league, including the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, and NCAA merchandise, which allows us to serve fans of football, baseball, hockey, basketball, lacrosse, soccer, golf, and, well, everything else that gets your heart pumping. Go to Fanatics.com by using the QR code on your screen right now to celebrate your teams. That's Fanatics.com, a proud sponsor of the Inside Edge Network, Cleveland's digital leader.
Are you hungry? Because I am. And it doesn't matter. We was talking about munchies and things like that. Is there a reason why we don't put any more respect on breakfast food at fast food restaurants? Oh, and by the way, Corn Nuts ran some very ranchy commercials back in the late 90s. Things we talked about. Oh, yeah, the Cleveland Browns in the quarterback room. We got all that stuff covered. Shador and Deshaun Watson, they're both desperate, okay? We got all that. All right, coming up tonight, Midnight Run. Unpack Fridays, plus we react to Game 2 of the NBA Finals, plus any late-breaking news. We'll have that for you. And, again, it's Friday. We're going to have some fun. Coming up tonight and every weeknight at midnight right here on the Inside Edge Network.
And welcome back to the Inside Edge Network morning show with Omar Claussell Jr. I'm filling in today. Who am I, you ask? I'm Eli Moon, and I'm here with you until 11 a.m. here on the Inside Edge Network. Good morning to everybody. Oh my goodness, the BRB screen. Hello. Wow. You guys look great. You guys look great out there. Are you smiling? Are you feeling good? Do you have your coffee? Do you have your breakfast? I know Double A talked at great lengths on Midnight Run yesterday about coffee, or more so breakfast food. I'm thinking about coffee. He talked about breakfast food and about how breakfast tastes better at dinner. And, you know, Papa Moon chefed up some eggs and potatoes and bacon the other day, and we put into a big medley of bowl, and just we smashed. And yes, it did taste better at dinner than it would at breakfast. Now, primarily, I'm not a big breakfast guy. Got to be honest, crazy. I'm on here on the morning show, and I'm not usually a breakfast guy. You know, I have my cup of coffee, maybe 2, maybe 3 in the morning. And again, for reference, not the little, you know, my aunt has the little coffee cup, you know, little mug, and, that's nice. I have this. I use a tumbler this big. I go up there like here. I get a crazy amount of coffee, and that's why I'm always jazzed up, and probably a lot of Dr. Pepper too. So Dr. Pepper, if you're listening, you want to give a sponsor. I probably can name all 23 flavors at this point. I love Dr. Pepper. But we're rocking here with you this morning. Again, Omar Claussell will be back with you next week. I'm Eli Moon. Probably have seen me across the network. I do a few different shows here and produce as well. It's a blessing to be with you this morning. 85 degrees in Cleveland, Ohio today. Oh my goodness, you're going to go out and get a walk in. If any of the bros are listening out there, hey, I got a little bit of time in between Unfiltered and prime time. I can go for a walk before the sun sets. If somebody wants to come grab me, we go for a bro drive and go walk. Let's rock and roll. Oh my goodness. Narrator chiming in, my bro from La Hele. Good morning. Good morning, bro. Hopefully you are making some great sounds there in the household, me cooking something up. Narrator, if you're not familiar, again, I said my brother from La Hele, one of the greatest producers, not only here in Ohio, but really across the nation. He does great work. We work on some real cool stuff. It's like walking into an experience, man. Like you never know what you're going to get. I've walked in there before and said, what if Marvin Gaye and Chance the Rapper made a love child? I said, what would that sound like? And we now have a beat that we believe would be if Marvin Gaye and Chance the Rapper had a love child. It's called Never Too Far, and it's on my album Moon and Sky that's out on all streaming platforms with narrator producing it. He's singing on the hook. It's real fun song, real fun album. Not too fond of the chick I made it for that album, but you know what? Hey, we move on, right? Take your sip of coffee, chill out. We're good. All right. Talk about NBA expansion and NHL expansion here in a minute. NHL isn't expanding, at least to my knowledge, right this instant. But I want to talk about the NBA should take a page out of their playbook with, how they handle maybe Seattle and Las Vegas. Before I do, though, of course, we have a lot of great weekly and daily coverage here on the Inside Edge Network. You should like, subscribe, follow at Inside Edge Net. Hit that notification bell. Know when we're going live. Inside Edge Net. Oh, my goodness. You should. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody about it, that we continue to grow. It's going to continue to help build us and help reach out to you. Continue to bring great and different coverage here as Cleveland's digital leader, your source for sports, entertainment, mental health conversations, news, and everything in between. Of course, go over to InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Again, InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Read about your favorite personalities. Look, I've been saying it all show. You don't have to tell anybody. We will not tell Chad tonight if I'm your favorite personality because, Chad's one of mine. It'd be a little Leo-like of me if I was my favorite personality. But I do love myself, I read about me, read about everybody, the personalities on the Inside Edge Network. Go over to our partners page, W Energy, Moss & Moments, sportsmemorabilia.com, fanatics.com, and AlleyRoseFragrances.com. Could not do without you, our partners. Could not do without you at home. So go to the shop page. Go to our shop and get a mug, a windbreaker, a hat, a shirt, a polo. Rep Cleveland's digital leader. Cleveland's digital leader. Let's try that again. The coffee maybe hasn't settled in. Cleveland's digital leader, your source for sports, entertainment, mental health conversations, news, and everything in between. You're going to want to stay locked in with Inside Edge Net because you get shows just like Side Hustle Wrestling Podcast with Kyle Cornell and Anthony Alford. Obviously, they started back a few years ago now. 2-3 years ago? They really helped create the launch, for the Inside Edge Network. Owner Peter Tellep, and then program director and my bro, AA Anthony Alford, along with Kyle Cornell, another one of my bros who plays an integral part on this network. Again, Unfiltered host from 5 to 6 p.m. here weekdays, giving you news coverage and a little bit of sports and just crazy stuff as well. Do you see that bear? Do you see that bear he talked about yesterday? If not, go back and watch yesterday's show. But had a lot to talk about, in terms of wrestling, and they built, this podcast into where they give you weekly coverage. If you need to get tapped back into wrestling, pro wrestling, these are the guys to get you ready to go. And they've been struggling recently, about what to do with this WWE product. They're not struggling. They're giving a great product in terms of the Side Hustle Wrestling Podcast. That's a great show. You got to watch it. But they've been struggling trying to find, how do we make the WWE sound better than it is right now? Because it's so tough. The WWE kind of stuck in these storylines where, okay, AA said it best. The wrestlers are over. They have, the fan support. They can go in the ring. They have all of that. But the storylines just are so repetitive and worn out. I know they're doing the bloodline again, and I'm interested to see how it goes with Jacob Fatu. I believe he's the main character in that storyline. Roman's going to eventually hand it off to him because they tried it with Jey Uso and it didn't work. But, I leave a lot of my wrestling takes more so to those guys. I just chime in with Danhausen, memes, and all that jazz. They aired another episode this morning, 5 a.m. Got to go back and watch the full episode. It was a great episode. I enjoyed it. I sat there and watched it, getting ready for this morning show here this morning with you. I want to play this. They were talking about why PLEs, premium live events, that's what they call pay-per-views now, why they need maybe some entertainment. AA talked about how okay, with it being on ESPN, the ESPN app, ESPN Plus, and having this just monotonous run of, okay, here's a match. Now here's 3 to 5 minutes of commercials. Now here's a little, an entrance or a talk. Now here's another 3 to 5 minutes of commercial. Now here's the match. It's just too much going on. You lose the backstage segments, all the stuff that made pay-per-views or premium live events fun and got WWE back into a renaissance period. Really in 22, 23, and even a little bit of 24. You had that renaissance period, Roman Reigns running with the bloodline, Cody Rhodes running with the story. Can he finish the story? And, I joke all the time with friend of Unfiltered, friend of a lot of us here on the Inside Edge Network, friend of the program, the Jake Underwood show host, Jake Underwood on 1420 AM. He does his thing. And, we joke all the time. I go, Jake, listen, man. He goes, I just don't get some of this stuff, man. I don't get it. Like, what exactly are they going for? It's a story. It's a story. You got to appreciate the story. Even when there's not a story there, you got to appreciate the story, right? Am I right? Well, I don't know if I'm right, but Double A and Kyle may be right about how WWE can help strengthen premium live events going forward and make it more entertaining for fans. Again, full episode out. Went out at 5 a.m. this morning. It's out on all our socials, but here's a clip talking about how WWE can spruce things up a little bit.
Have an intermission. If you're going to do that, have an intermission.
You got all these celebrities that are showing up. You got these musical artists. Have them do a fucking halftime thing.
I would love that.
Hey, for the next 10 minutes, we're doing a fucking Jelly Roll concert, or we're doing Lil Yachty's going to perform.
That's how you get them involved. You get them invested.
Yeah, and you can take a break in between. That's your little break. Then you can play ads.
Mm-hmm.
Do a couple ads to get them ready to set up stage.
Yep.
Do the performance. Then ads afterwards. And then keep back to the fucking wrestling.
And then back to the show.
Yes. It's an independent wrestling model that actually works.
Look, I'm not going to argue with those guys when it comes to, I would love to see Lil Yachty perform. He's Trick Williams' manager right now. Trick Williams is the United States champion. And, Lil Yachty's his manager. I would love to see Lil Yachty perform. I know a few of the bros in La Hele are big fans of Lil Yachty. They rock with his music. I think that would bring some of those guys, some of my bros, over to wrestling. If I told them, hey, want to watch wrestling tonight? And they're like, Eli, like, probably not, man. Like, to be honest with you, they got other stuff to take care of, And I go, but Lil Yachty's performing tonight. They go, all right, I'm in, or whoever, Morgan Wallen on the countryside, whoever's, they have these theme songs, not for the wrestlers, because now they do, like, I think it's CFO or whatever it is. Def Rebel. I don't think it's Def Rebel. I think it's CFO. Somebody will fact check me, but it's not good, whatever they have right now, for the music. A lot of it, a lot of it's like, okay, I would hear this in like a Hallmark card, or something. Like, I don't know. It's not recognizable, a lot of it. It's not what it used to be. Not gone are the days of John Cena's theme music and Triple H and Rey Mysterio. I mean, Rey Mysterio still got his, obviously you can't change that, but just other things, that it makes it recognizable. But they do have their, like, their premium live event theme song, the song of the summer for SummerSlam and stuff like that. Why wouldn't you have those guys perform? Hey, we have 2-3 matches, like the guy said from Side Hustle, Kyle and Double A. We have these matches, boom, boom, title match, big blood feud. And then, hey, Lil Yachty's going to perform for 15, 20 minutes. Just do a quick set, do a few songs, get out there and do, some of the songs, Minnesota, do some of these songs. And I don't know. In Minnesota, I believe, the song that blew Lil Yachty up, and I believe I'm quoting the right song. I just want to double check. It's been a minute, and it is the morning, but yes, Minnesota. Yes, cold in Minnesota. Yes, Lil Yachty and all those guys rocking. Why wouldn't you? It's going to bring in people of different audience that is like, okay, I'm going to watch simply for that. Think about the Super Bowl. How many people watched the Super Bowl because of Bad Bunny, right? And I loved it. I thought Bad Bunny did an incredible job, a powerful performance in a time right now where the world's in a weird spot in terms of accepting people, in terms of really a lot of things, right? And we won't divulge too much into that right this instant, maybe another morning for you, or maybe, in one of the evening slots. But what I will say is a lot of people tune in for Bad Bunny. A lot of people tune in for the Super Bowl halftime show in general. Dr. Dre, when they ran the California Super Bowl halftime show with Snoop Dogg and 50 Cent showed up. I know he's a New York guy, but rocking, they did their thing, man. They did their thing. And people tuned in because of that. And maybe they kept a few more eyeballs on the game because of that. WWE could do the same thing by having whoever perform, do a 15, 20-minute performance, maybe make an appearance, on commentary or something, whatever. You don't have to overdo it, but include the celebrities. If you're leaning into this, if you're TKO and you're leaning into, okay, we need the celebrities. We need to have Jelly Roll. I don't mind Jelly Roll, but we need Jelly Roll, and we need Pat McAfee on the sports side more so, right? Former punter of the Indianapolis Colts, host of the Pat McAfee Show over on ESPN. If you're leaning into we need celebrity presence to make our big events like WrestleMania and everything like that big, then lean into having the celebrities perform, do something that shocks almost wrestling fans that they're not used to. They haven't seen in a minute. There used to be performances randomly during Raw, and I believe at one point they had Hardy when he was like the theme song he performed, and it kind of shocked people, and they never went back to it. But I think just doing your due diligence, knowing who can put on a good live performance for fans, for an arena, and clicks with your audience, those three things, you could have something that really works here and brings in more eyeballs to the product. And isn't that what WWE wants by including celebrities? So you don't always have to have them wrestling in matches or being in your main event storyline. That was crazy. That was crazy with Pat McAfee, Jelly Roll, all that inclusion. You can have him more on a Lil Yachty side where he's the manager for Trick Williams, the Intercontinental Champion, cutting promos, and he knows, where, kind of where he settles in there. And then if he goes performs, cool, and you can have other performers. Heck, I make music, narrator makes music, LaHale makes music. We got a lot of people in the community. We'll go out and perform for you. You need us at an event. They just had Clash in Italy. We'll go perform. I think Saturday night's main event is in New York City soon at Madison Square Garden. Hey, I don't have my number here, but I have at the man they call Moon. Give me a call. I'll be around. Narrator chiming back in here. He said, I was just about to say that all the other sports are doing it in some sort of fashion. Exactly, bro. It's the WWE has leaned already into the celebrity aspect of, okay, you know what? We need celebrities to bring in more eyeballs. But they're doing it, I think, in the wrong way by they're trying to include them in their main portion of the event. I don't need to see Pat McAfee on the sports side. I know he's a sports guy, but I don't need to see Jelly Roll or any of these guys wrestling 30-minute matches. Leave it to the guys like Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, Jacob Fatu. Leave it to those guys. But put them on stage. Let them rock out. Let them have a backstage segment where they bump into each other and like, hey, whatever. Make it inclusive. I think WWE's overdoing it with the celebrity thing, and they're going in the wrong spot with how they're trying to handle it. I think leaning into what the guy said on Side Hustle Wrestling Podcast, Kyle and Double A, lean into maybe a halftime concert, an intermission, let people rock out. Let people, these pay-per-views, these premium live events are sometimes 3 hours, WrestleMania is sometimes 4 hours at times. Let somebody go grab some pizza or something. I hate missing some of the matches. Let me go grab some pizza or something, from the table or something. Or, like if it's, if I need to refill my drink, like I don't want to miss the end of a match or something, and what if I got to use the bathroom, man? Look, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I got to use the bathroom. I did when I was younger. I used to practice at movies. My mom used to laugh at me all the time, Mama Moon, because she'd be like, use the bathroom, everybody, when we're at the movie theater. You're going to use the bathroom before you go into the movie because you don't want to miss the movie. And I was just like, I would test myself to see how long I could wait without going to the bathroom. And I made it through an Avatar movie, like the first Avatar. That's like 3 hours long. I made it through. I had to use the bathroom after, but strong mind, strong body. Yes, we're rocking though. But make sure you check out Side Hustle Wrestling Podcast Fridays, 5 a.m. They start off your morning real early, so it's 2 a.m. on the West Coast. But let's keep it Eastern time. That's where we're at, Cleveland's digital leader. 5 a.m. Eastern time on Fridays. Side Hustle Wrestling Podcast with Kyle Cornell and Double Anthony Alford. They do a great job on that show. Of course, you see Kyle on Unfiltered, 5 to 6 p.m. weekdays, including today. Here's talking about news, current events, a little bit of sports, a little bit of everything, right? With Kyle, and he does a great job there. And then, of course, Double Anthony Alford later on tonight, Midnight Run with Anthony Alford, midnight to 1, weeknights, including tonight, here on the Inside Edge Network. A lot of great stuff. A lot of great weekly and daily programming here for you. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow at Inside Edge Net on all the socials, YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitch. Hit that notification bell, know when we're going live. And hit InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Go type it in and pull it up, or use that QR code right over, boom, there. And you can go to our partners page, W Energy, Monster Moments, SportsMemorabilia.com, Fanatics.com, and AlleyRoseFragrances.com. Could not do without them and could not do without you at home. Go to the shop page, get a hat, windbreaker, shirt, polo, mug, all that great stuff. Rep Cleveland's digital leader and your source for everything I just mentioned. All right, we're going to take a quick pause. We did not get the NBA and NHL expansion here in this segment. I got a little heated about pro wrestling. That's what happens sometimes, all right? That's what happens. But I'm Eli Moon, filling in for Omar Claussell Jr. here on the Inside Edge Network Morning Show. When we come back, we will talk about if the NBA should take a page out of the NHL expansion, and then we'll quickly pivot at the end of the show about the NFL. I had a few thoughts on that, put some final thoughts on this episode of the Morning Show, and get you ready for the rest of your Friday. But I'm Eli Moon. This is the Inside Edge Network Morning Show. Back after this.
Discover our collection of body mists made with clean, minimal ingredients. Handcrafted with natural essential oils and clean ingredients, they offer a natural alternative to synthetic fragrances. Perfect for sensitive skin and those seeking clean, mindful self-care, and the perfect gift for you or your special someone. Courtesy of Alley Rose Fragrances. First-time customers, use that promo code InsideEdge20 to receive 20% off your order. AlleyRoseFragrances.com, a proud sponsor of the Inside Edge Network, Cleveland's digital leader. Clean energy, bold flavors, and no jitters. See why people won't shut up about Dubby. Clean energy, no jitters or crash. Whether you're starting your workday or getting ready to exercise, Dubby Energy helps you lock in and focus. With over 15 flavors to choose from, you can't miss. Order Dubby Energy right now by using the QR code on your screen and use the promo code InsideEdge10 to receive 10% off your order. Dubby Energy, your energy-focused sponsor of the Inside Edge Network, Cleveland's digital leader. Hey guys, awesome episode of Unfiltered today. Talked about a bunch of different things, including the first energy scandal. We've got some more indictments that came down. And Jake Underwood talked about what he would do with the lakefront property now that the Browns are moving over to Brook Park. As for tomorrow's show on your Friday, new drug making the rounds that's a little more concerning than fentanyl. Believe it or not, we'll talk about that. And President Trump going to be attending an NBA Finals game. We'll tell you which one and if it's a good idea. Right here on Unfiltered, 5 p.m. all along the Inside Edge Network. I'll see you.
And welcome back to the Inside Edge Network morning show with Omar Claussell Jr. I am your fill-in host for this Friday. I'm Eli Moon. And we're back. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It only took me a few tries, but I bet you that the BRB screen won't be here. But I will be. I'm here with you for another 24 minutes or so. Who's counting? I'm having a great time. Are you having a great time? Have you made your coffee? Papa Moon, I know you're out there listening somewhere because I talked to you this morning and you said, oh, you're up early. And I said, good morning. So how are you having your coffee, Papa Moon? How is my aunt having her coffee? I know you're over there rocking probably next door. How are you having your coffee, everybody? How are you? Are you having your breakfast? Double A. Hopefully, you know, if you're out there listening, you got your Taco Bell breakfast this morning. You got, you know, to Turney Road, and they said, good morning. What would you like for breakfast? So we had a discussion last night on Midnight Run. And I got a little passionate, got a little heated about the wrestling discussion. A little last segment, not too heated, no, not post game of Cavaliers game 1 against the Knicks heated, but heated nonetheless. But make sure you stay locked in with everything we got going on. Like, subscribe, follow Inside Edge Net on all the socials: YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of that stuff. Make sure you hit the notification bell and know when we're going live. It means the world to us. We're Cleveland's digital leader and your source for sports, entertainment, mental health conversations, news, and everything in between. Go check out InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Read about your favorite personalities. Check out our partners, W Energy, Monster Moments, SportsMemorabilia.com, Fanatics.com, and AlleyRoseFragrances.com. And go over to our shop and get a mug, a hat, a polo, a shirt, a windbreaker as well. Go rep Cleveland's digital leader. Look pretty cool doing so. We appreciate you so much. Narrator chiming in. He's rocking with me, the bro rocking with me this morning. He said hazelnut. You know, usually I know you're more of a matcha guy. You know, I know if you get a chance, you got matcha, but I know if you got the narrator's got the cool, like it's like a stir type coffee. He can stir his own coffee. I mean, Man, bro, we are elevating here in technology, and it's crazy. It's scary. It's scary, but it's cool at the same time, right? We talked on Midnight Conversations. If would Double A be okay with having a clone of himself? I will tell you right now, I wouldn't be okay with that, because that make two of me, and that may not be the greatest thing. Especially during Leo season, we're almost in Leo season. It could be a little dangerous. But all joking aside, we talked about it before the break. We got into some wrestling conversation. Again, Side Hustle Wrestling Podcast just dropped their episode here on all of our socials at Inside Edge Net this morning at 5 a.m. But we want to make sure, we get to what we teased, right? That's important. And I talked a little bit about if the NBA, if they were to expand to Seattle and Vegas or wherever, should they take a page out of the NHL expansion draft? The NHL in 2017 had the Vegas Golden Knights join the NHL, right? Vegas got their team, and they quickly got to the Stanley Cup. They got there in their inaugural season, and they won one, back in, I believe it was 2023, the Vegas Golden Knights. They won one within their first 10 years of being in the NHL. And, in 2023, they defeated the Florida Panthers in 5 games. They're back in the Stanley Cup this year against the Carolina Hurricanes, tied 1-1 in that series. After last night, they weren't able to get it done. Interesting if they are able to pull off a second Stanley Cup in their first decade. 3 appearances, 2 wins. 3 appearances alone is pretty crazy. Of course, you have the Seattle Kraken as well, right? They were the other expansion team for the NHL. They joined, not too long ago, right? I believe they had joined in 2022, and I'm just fact-checked. In 2021, they were founded, and they made the playoffs in their second year, and they haven't made the playoffs since, so they're a little different in terms of, okay, they aren't the Vegas Golden Knights. I get it. It doesn't work for every expansion team. They've had other expansion teams. I was reading this morning about the Minnesota Wild, and they brought Nashville in. They had other teams that maybe didn't find crazy success, but the NHL did change the way they're handling their expansion draft. They did it with Vegas, and Vegas lucked into William Karlsson, some of these other guys having standout years. Marc-Andre Fleury on that first team that went to the Stanley Cup at goalkeeper, goaltender. You think of Marc-Andre Fleury being pretty important on those Pittsburgh Penguin championship teams, with Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Phil Kessel. Everybody loves Phil Kessel. Robert Zicki loves Phil Kessel. That's his guy. But think about that. And they were able to grab him and grab some real big names. William Karlsson had a breakout year for the Vegas Golden Knights that year. And, again, they won their first Stanley Cup. So how does the NHL expansion work? So the NHL expansion draft rules, they stipulate an expansion team must select one player from each existing franchise, either using, a 7 forward, 3 defensemen, and 1 goaltender protection scheme, or an 8 skater and 1 goaltender scheme. First and second year professionals are fully exempt. So that means, these teams can block their rosters in 2 ways. Again, 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goaltender is option A. Or option B is 8 skaters, a combination of forwards and defensemen, and 1 goaltender. And then the first and second year players are exempt. So if you have a rookie or you have a guy who's going into a second year, they're off limits. But it does leave a lot of guys available depending how these teams shift and protect their players so they don't have somebody plucked and gone. I think a lot of teams learned after Vegas handled their draft so well. They're like, okay, maybe we should handle this a little bit better, right? And protect our players, do the right scheme. How do you know if you got the right scheme? Who knows? But I wonder if the NBA would do something like that with Seattle and with Las Vegas. Those are the 2 teams they're talking about bringing into the fold. So we'll use those 2 cities, right? I wonder what that would mean, for the NBA. Do they do like option A? You can protect, because it's tricky because it's such a positionless game for the most part anymore. Do you protect, on a 12, 15, if you include reserves man roster? Do you get to protect like 7 or 8 of your guys and then half the roster's up for grabs? Do you make more of the roster available? How do you make it competitive? Because the last thing the NBA is going to want to see after they're trying to curb tanking, they're not trying to have teams be bad. Don't think they're going to want to bring in Seattle, Vegas, whoever, and have them be bad for an extended period of time, because how is that going to be, supported by fans in those cities? Sure, Vegas, it's a tourist town, so probably have something going on every night. But Seattle, I know they love the Supersonics, but how are you going to draw excitement into that city? So I think having, a page out of the NHL expansion draft and having some sort of scheme that players or teams rather have to follow, whether it's, okay, maybe you get to protect 3 front court guys and 4 back court guys. And that's option A. And, when we vice versa, you get to protect 4 front court guys and 3 backcourt guys, right? I mean, you wonder how they're going to handle it. But I think taking maybe a page out of the NHL expansion draft, looking into that and seeing how they can make these teams competitive. I'm not saying juice them up to where they're just kicking every team's behind in the NBA, but putting them in a position where they'll be competitive, where teams, will have a chance and the fans will have a team that they can root for and be proud of, right? I don't think they'll have that problem in Seattle. I think they're going to be proud of that team, and same probably with Vegas, but make it at least a little bit more entertaining. So keep an eye on everything. Narrator chiming back in here about coffee. At home is hazel. On the move is matcha. That's right. The matcha move. I love it. I love it. Not to be confused with the macho man. Yes. And then, of course, we have, I believe, Omar's mom chiming in here. Hello. She's like, caramel ribbon crunch. Is it from Starbucks? I know they're not a sponsor. I don't usually mention too many places if they're not sponsors here at the Inside Edge Network, but if Starbucks is listening, hey, we could talk. But caramel ribbon crunch, I'd imagine from Starbucks. We'll see. We'll see what the answer is here. But yes, we'll see what the NBA does with expansion, what they do to kind of handle the draft and going forward. Of course, the NBA draft at the end of this month, if I'm not mistaken, the NBA draft coming up, I want to say it is June 29th. I'm double checking here, guys. Give me 1 second here. June 23rd and 24th this year, a little bit earlier. I remember it being, I think, at the end of the month, like that last weekend, but June 23rd, 24th. Of course, you got some notable names. AJ DeBance out of BYU, Cameron Booz out of Duke, Darius Acuff out of Arkansas, Caleb Wilson out of UNC. You have a lot of guys that are standout players. Of course, Darren Peterson out of Kansas, standouts. So it'll be fun to see where everybody goes, right? And how the future of the league looks. Not only with this draft, but maybe expansions in the future. Yes, Starbucks indeed. All right. Interesting enough. I'm a usually at home coffee guy, or like I said, my aunt's house next door. That's where I'll be heading after to get some coffee and rock out. I'm also going to try to convince Papa Moon. Maybe we step out and grab some food. I'm buying, Pops. Maybe we buy some food after as well. We'll keep an eye on it. But I'm going to take a quick pause here. We'll take a quick pause. When I come back, I'll get a few things around the NFL. Talked about Myles Garrett. We'll talk about a little bit about him, get some things, A.J. Brown as well. Myles Garrett on the move to the Rams from Cleveland. A.J. Brown from the move from Philly to New England. Odell Beckham Jr. is a Giant again. Are you interested? Does the reunion make you excited? We'll talk about that, and then we'll talk briefly about Aaron Judge. He's going to be reimaged in 4 to 6 weeks, but he broke the top rib, and obviously for a very violent swinger at the plate, batting-wise. That's not good for Aaron Judge, not good for the Yankees, who currently sit in second in the AL East behind the Tampa Bay Rays, who have the best record in the American League right now. Do the Rays run away with the American League? And what does this mean for the Guardians and the rest of the American League? We'll talk about all that, put a bow on this edition of the morning show. This is, again, the Inside Edge Network morning show with Omar Claussell Jr. I'm your fill-in host, Eli Moon, and we're back right after this.
Find us on InsideEdgeNetwork.com for the latest information on your favorite shows, personalities, and network partners. Plus, guess what? We have a merch shop. That's right, we have network polos, t-shirts, champion jackets, hats, and bottles. Rep the network. Every purchase supports independent sports and entertainment media. Use the QR code on your screen right now to check out InsideEdgeNetwork.com. That's InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Clean energy, bold flavors, and no jitters. See why people won't shut up about Dubby. Clean energy, no jitters or crash. Whether you're starting your workday or getting ready to exercise, Dubby Energy helps you lock in and focus. With over 15 flavors to choose from, you can't miss. Order Dubby Energy right now by using the QR code on your screen and use the promo code InsideEdge10 to receive 10% off your order. Dubby Energy, your energy-focused sponsor of the Inside Edge Network, Cleveland's digital leader.
All right, we have no time to waste. Only got a few minutes left here on the Inside Edge Network morning show with Omar Claussell Jr. Welcome back. I'm your fill-in host for this Friday edition. I'm Eli Moon. We're rocking. We're rolling. We're rolling and we're rocking. We're saddle adjacent, as we say on prime time. We're back here on the Inside Edge Network. A few more minutes, about 10 or so with you. Get into some quick roundup things. I want to briefly talk about the NFL. Obviously, you know, we're still reeling here in Cleveland with some of us. With Myles Garrett being traded to the Los Angeles Rams, we got Jared Verse back, linebacker, defensive rookie of the year in 2024, two-time Pro Bowler going into his third season, a 27 first, a 28 second, and a 29 third round pick. That, if, you know, reported by Mary Kay Cabot, if the the Rams rather, trade Myles Garrett back to the AFC North, then that becomes a first round pick. You know, we were joking the other day, me and one of the bros, we were talking, I'm like, wouldn't it be so funny? I mean, it would never happen, but wouldn't it be hilarious if, you know, the Rams win their Super Bowl? Okay, awesome. And then they're like, you know what? And we deserve to give him back to Cleveland. Now that he's fulfilled his championship hopes, let's give him back to where he belongs, Cleveland. And then, you know, it turns into a first round pick, and Adam Newberry's like, I am the ultimate GM. I told you to trust me. Okay, it would never happen. Okay, let's stop joking. But it is an interesting condition nonetheless, and obviously wishing Myles well. He was at OTAs yesterday for the Rams. I know that made a lot of Cleveland fans and media outlets kind of frustrated because why wasn't he here? Well, he was disgruntled here. Whether, you know, it was played up to be a big deal or not, he was disgruntled here. He didn't want to be here really anymore. And hey, if he wants to go be in OTAs in LA, enjoy the sunshine, that's on him, right? You know, I don't have anything bad to say about Myles. He did a lot of great things here. He was a community leader. Sure, maybe he wasn't the biggest leader per se in the locker room to some, but one of the best players, if not, you know, the best player we've had since 2000, right? Since 1999. So he's probably, at least on the defensive side of the ball, he's the best defensive player we've had. Single season sack record, all that stuff. So wish Myles well. Obviously hoping Jared Verse plays like, you know, the open market would say he's worth 2 first rounders. Hope he plays well. He's 25 years old and looks inspired. So we'll see there. That's some Myles, you know, roundup. I'll probably have some more thoughts, obviously, maybe tonight and throughout next week as we kind of just keep dealing with the aftermath. The other thing is, you know, the A.J. Brown trade. You know, it was rumored for months, and then all the smoke with Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini, you know, the reports and all the muddiness and all that. And, well, you know, Mike Vrabel was A.J. Brown's coach in Tennessee, so there's that tie there as well. A.J. Brown comes in there as the wide receiver one. He replaces Stephon Diggs, who the Patriots released. You know, obviously had some legal issues going on, and yeah, they moved on for Stephon Diggs. A.J. Brown now the alpha there. Curious to see how he plays with Drake May, but I think it's an instant upgrade. I like Stephon Diggs, but I think AJ Brown's an upgrade. Definitely an upgrade, and he's motivated. He talked about how this is his childhood team. He loves the Patriots. He said even in an interview, and we'll try to pull it up maybe for prime time tonight, or if not, we'll play it next week. But he talked about how at Philly I was just taking care of business. I had to do what I had to do, but this is like a dream. This feels real, like to paraphrase. So curious to see how AJ Brown and the Patriots do. There's a lot of smoke there, like I said, with the Vrabel, Rossini stuff. Having them move on from Stephon Diggs. A lot of stuff going on there. And then, of course, did you see Odell Beckham Jr. joining the Giants? Reunited, and it feels so good. Odell Beckham Jr. and the Giants back into the flow of things. They are back where he made his one-handed catch and had a lot of success there before bouncing around the Cleveland and then the Rams and then Baltimore and then a stint in Miami. Odell Beckham Jr. back with the New York Giants. Do you care? Are you interested? He is now back with the team, and he joins a roster receiver-wise that has Malik Neighbors and really, a bunch of other guys, right? They're going to have to stand out. When you look at the wide receiver room, I believe they still have Darius Slayton. Darnell Mooney came over there in the offseason. Calvin Austin. They have some guys. Juju Smith-Schuster, that's the big one I'm thinking of. Not Calvin Austin, Juju Smith-Schuster. They did bring Calvin Austin too, and he was interesting in Pittsburgh, as a weapon here and there, making some plays across the middle, little slant routes, things like that. But, Giants have made some moves in terms of the receiving room. So let's just run down this receiving room real quick. Odell Beckham Jr., Juju Smith-Schuster, both brought in a veteran minimum deal for Odell Beckham Jr. Juju Smith-Schuster, he is obviously now a New York Giant. Braxton Berrios, Darius Slayton, Darnell Mooney, Calvin Austin, and then, of course, you have Isaiah Hodgins, and then Malik Neighbors, who's the star of the show there. So it's going to be interesting. Neighbors is going to do his thing. He's recovering. He had his second surgery to remove some scar tissue from his knee surgery, his first one, and they're hoping he's ready. The Giants are hoping he's ready for week 1. So we'll keep an eye on that. But the Giants obviously playing some protection. They lost Wan'Dale Robinson to, I believe, Tennessee in the offseason. So interested to see, how Juju steps up, to Odell Beckham Jr., some of these veterans, Darnell Mooney, just some of these guys, Calvin Austin, Darius Slayton, interesting. Giants are trying to just handle it by, numbers, in terms of numbers. We have enough guys here that it should work out, right? Should work out. So that's a little bit of roundup in the NFL, which we could have spent a little more time, but wait, we're in a sprint here at the end, okay? And I want to get to, I talked about Aaron Judge being out for the New York Yankees. It broke yesterday. Chad Bryant sent it over to me, and I was like, oh, that's not good. I don't like the Yankees. Let's be very clear. I don't like the Yankees. I know that's to the chagrin of one Kyle Cornell, our unfiltered host, 5 to 6 p.m. here on the Inside Edge Network. But I never want to see injuries. And ESPN had this. I'm reading this from ESPN and Jorge Castillo yesterday, reporting that Aaron Judge had been diagnosed with a stress fracture of the first rib on his right side. Expected to return this season, but it'll be re-imaged, I believe, in 4 to 6 weeks. So, Chad and I were talking yesterday. That's like, okay, he may not return till August, after the All-Star break and late in the run. Now, the Yankees, they're doing pretty well right now in terms of, they're maintaining. They're 37-25. They're a half game back of the Rays in the AL East. But Judge is a huge part of that lineup. And, swinging the bat, and, Chad brought this up, yesterday while we were talking after the show. Having, the swing of the bat and the way he's, a home run hitter, just mashing the ball, it's a lot of pain. Chad said he might as well have broken his collarbone with how close that is. The first rib, that's a lot. There's a lot going on. How do the Yankees kind of bounce back? How do they take the AL East? One thing's for certain, the Yankees are never afraid of spending money and making big splashes. So I think this makes them more of a buyer at the I almost said NBA, MLB trade deadline, and they may go look for some bats. Mike Trout might be on the move. Maybe look at Mike Trout, Yordan Alvarez. They're going to look for somebody. They're going to look for some outfield names. That's why Trout makes a lot of sense. Just somebody that could help bring in some offense. Kyle Cornell chiming in here this morning. He did say, as a Yankee fan, I'm distraught about the Judge injury. Just grateful that Ben Rice has been playing well, and Cody Bellinger, and Paul Goldschmidt have been hitting too. Exactly, Kyle. And you got some veterans there, in Bellinger and Goldschmidt. And Ben Rice has been a great surprise. He might start getting some MVP talks when it comes to later on in the year, especially now without Aaron Judge. He's going to have to be the man there on that offense for the most part. It's going to start and end with him, right? Jazz Chisholm and those other guys are going to provide, but it's going to start and end with him, right? So we'll keep an eye on that. What does this mean for, first off, the Rays? Well, if the Yankees don't go out and buy, and get some more talent at the trade deadline, then they're probably going to win the AL East. I know that's a bold prediction to say in the beginning of June, but they've been playing really, really good baseball. Who knows what they do at the trade deadline? And I think this Judge injury could set the Yankees back quite a bit for a month or two. And, a month or two makes a big difference in an MLB season. We're talking 30 to, 45 games at that point. I mean, that's a lot of time to be missed, and curious to see how the Yankees respond, recover, however you want to put it. As far as the Guardians, we got a few minutes here left. As far as the Guardians, look, I've been saying it. This is the year to win the American League. This is the first time you can win the American League since 2016. 10 years ago. Same thing we were talking about with the Cavs with the NBA championship. Go out and spend. I heard on the broadcast yesterday, Tom Hamilton kind of going at it with a Jeff Passan report. And Jeff Passan on ESPN does some great work, but he said, Jeff Passan said that, he doesn't think the Guardians will be big spenders. Well, Tom Hamilton said, how do we know that, yet, right? Who knows what the Guardians are going to do? And it seems like, to me, the Guardians are going to shock some people. And I said the Guardians are going to be the biggest spenders. Maybe that's the wrong word, but they're going to be the biggest buyers at the deadline. They're going to make multiple moves. Chad and I have talked about, Freddie Peralta from the New York Mets to strengthen that pitching rotation with Tanner Bybee having some question marks. 0-7 on the year, 13 winless starts. Is he going to be able to get, going, right? If not, you maybe bring in Freddie Peralta, slot him in as your third guy, like Chad was talking to me about, and you put, a lineup of, rotation-wise of Gavin Williams, Parker Messick, Freddie Peralta, Joey Cantillo, and Slade Ciccone. You also have Logan Allen there as well. And some arms in the farm that if you really want to go there. Maybe entertain Tariq Skubal. Maybe that's a little too rich of a price for a rental. A guy who's probably not going to sign a big contract here, especially with a lockout on the way probably next season and new ownership change maybe on the way in the next couple of years with David Blitzer for the Guardians. Who knows? I talked about maybe Mike Trout. Maybe a little too expensive. Who knows? I do think they're going to be big buyers. I think they'll be the biggest buyers in the American League because this is the year, especially with the Judge injury now. And I hate to see injuries. I wish Aaron Judge well and wish him a quick recovery. But with Judge injury and the Rays being the best team in the American League right now, is theirs for the taking. The Guardians, it's theirs for the taking. Start creating some space in the AL Central from the White Sox and the Twins, the Tigers, and of course those Royals. They're all kind of below 500, right? Except for the White Sox, who's 33-29, surprising a lot of teams, but they're 2 games back of the Guardians. So the Guardians just had to pull it together, get away from the Central, go by and stop worrying about the Central, worry about the American League, and go win your first American League pennant since 2016. I think that is how I'm feeling about the Guardians. So we'll talk a little bit more Guardians probably tonight here on Inside Edge Primetime, or there on Inside Edge Primetime here on the Inside Edge Network, but that's going to put a bow on it here. Thank you so much for everybody for tuning in here on this Friday, getting your Friday started with the Inside Edge Network. We have a lot of great programming here. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow at Inside Edge Net on YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitch. Stay locked in. Hit that notification bell so you know when we're going live. Have a lot of great weekly programming, like we'll talk with Papa Moon Saturdays at 5 p.m. Jersey Chasers with Autumn and Chrissy. They are on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. You have Voice of the Land, which is, of course, on Thursdays at 6 o'clock. You got a lot of great program. I do Tuesday evening, 7:30, Conversations with Eli Moon. We have main events earlier in the week, Sunday. It'll be this upcoming Sunday. Robert Zicki, W. Anthony Alford, and myself with you Sunday nights. Of course, Illegal Formation, Chad Bryan and TK Dandridge, Mondays at 7 to 8 p.m. A lot of great program. Mike Check Take 2, typically on Fridays at 7 o'clock. So a lot of great stuff here. Keep you updated on that as well. But a lot of great stuff here on the Inside Edge Network. Of course, we have our daily shows as well. The morning show, which is typically hosted by Omar Claussell Jr. I'm wishing my bro well wishes, and he should be back with you next week. So we love you, Omar. We can't wait to see you back here in front of the screen next week. But Omar Claussell Jr. does the Inside Edge Network morning show, which you're watching right now. I'm filling in today. That's 9 to 11 a.m. every week morning, but strong morning, as I joke. But yes, every morning, and strong morning. And then, of course, you have Kyle Cornell Unfiltered, 5 to 6 p.m. weekdays here on the Inside Edge Network. Then Inside Edge Primetime with Chad Bryan and myself, 10 to 11 p.m. And then weeknights, 12 a.m. to 1 a.m., Monday through Friday, you have Double A Anthony Alford, Midnight Run with Anthony Alford. So a lot of great weekly and daily programming here on the Inside Edge Network. Of course, Fridays, how could I forget? A new episode dropped at 5 a.m., and it drops every Friday at 5 a.m. Side Hustle Wrestling Podcast with Kyle Cordell and Anthony Alford. Of course, produced by our owner of the Inside Edge Network, Peter Tellep, who we appreciate so much. Thank you, Pete. And thank you, Double A Anthony Alford, our program director. Thank all of you out there for rocking with us this morning and all week long and continuing to support Cleveland's digital leader, your source for sports, entertainment, mental health conversations, news, and everything in between. Give us a follow at Inside Edge Net. Go check out InsideEdgeNetwork.com. Read about your favorite personalities. Go to the partners page for Boss or Moments. SportsMemorabilia.com, W Energy, Fanatics.com, and AliRoseFragrances.com. Could not do it without them and couldn't do it without you. So go to that shop one more time. Go grab a hat, a polo, a shirt, a windbreaker, a mug, something great, and rep Cleveland's digital leader, your source for sports, entertainment, mental health conversations, news, and everything in between. So a lot of great stuff going on this weekend. Omar's mom chimed in here. Cleveland Pride is tomorrow. So if you're celebrating the parade and the festivities tomorrow, that'll be cool. A lot of great music. I know a few of the artists that are performing. It'll be real cool there. And a lot of great stuff, a lot of great music throughout the weekend, a lot of great sporting events. Just things going on, whether it's here in Cleveland or not. Sit down, maybe get a barbecue going, put the TV on outside and rock and roll and go out and get some live music, and you go out and walk in nature. Go do something that fulfills you and makes you happy, because it's worth it, man. We get one life, we get one chance, so let's rock and roll. All right, that's going to do it here. For Omar Claussell Jr., who'll be back with you next week, holding it down here on the Inside Edge Network Morning Show, as always. For everybody, all of our partners, we appreciate you. For the program director, W. Anthony Alford, and owner Peter Tellup, and everybody on the Inside Edge Network, we appreciate all of them, all of us. We appreciate you at home, because we couldn't do it without you. I'd be talking to you in abyss if not. We appreciate you so much. So I'm Eli Moon. This has been the Inside Edge Network Morning Show. We will see you later today for Unfiltered with Kyle Cornell, then Prime Time with Chad Bryan and myself, and Midnight Run with Anthony Alford. Busy Friday. Come spend it with the Inside Edge Network. I'll talk to you guys later on Unfiltered at 5 p.m. with Kyle Cornell. I'll see you then.